Hi, welcome to another Rust tutorial, and today we're going to be talking about functions. In this short tutorial video, I'm going to be talking about what a function is, how to write a function, and some of the features of Rust functions. If you are an experienced programmer, functions will be familiar to you as one of the main building blocks that are used. If you are not an experienced programmer, maybe this will be good to go over some of the features of functions. So, what is a function? A function is a building block inside a program that helps us decompose our program logic. So typically we start out with a big problem, and what we need to do is the process of decomposition, where we break that project down into smaller and smaller problems. And then for each problem we find a mechanism to write a piece of code that will solve that particular problem. So it might be that we provide some kind of input and we're expecting to get some kind of output from that. So today I'm going to go over how we write a function in Rust and how we would actually get a value back from that function as well. So provide it with some inputs and some outputs. Okay, some of the things that we need to bear in mind about functions. The main executable inside a Rust program will have a main function. This is the program's entry point, and I'll show you what that looks like, but effectively it's the main entry point. And in there we're going to find a lot of the core logic for our actual program. And what that will do is it will actually make calls to other functions, provide it with some inputs, and those functions will return the outputs to the main function. That'll all become clear when I go through the example that I've got. Some of the other things that we should bear in mind when we're writing functions is they should be clear in what they do. So we don't want to have too much logic inside a function. We want to keep a function's logic fairly simple so that it only kind of does one thing. If you end up with multiple tasks inside a function, it's often better to break those out into separate functions. This allows us to keep our code clean. It's easy to read, it's easy to understand. When you come back to it in a few months' time, you're going to have a better idea of what that code should be doing. So that's something to bear in mind. We can give our functions names, and these names should be meaningful. Like, try and make those names meaningful, because again, it will give you a clue as to what that function is supposed to do. We can also add code comments to our functions. I'm going to cover comments in a different topic later on, but we'll talk about how you should comment your code. And this will help it make it clear to anyone who's reading your code how the function works, the inputs, the outputs, and things like that. I'm going to cover that in a separate tutorial because I think there's some things that we can go through there in some greater detail. So the next thing to do is to jump into the console, and I'm just going to start by writing a simple project, a first get you started project using Cargo. And then from there, we will iterate on that, and I will show you how to write a function and get a result back from it. Okay, so let's jump into the console now. So here I am in the console. I'm just going to increase the size, maybe go down one, turn on my cursor. So hopefully you can see my console now. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create a new project, and I'm just going to call this project functions. If the cargo is an unfamiliar command to you, I did a tutorial on that, so go and check that out. So with cargo new functions in place, let's just create our new project. You can see up here that it's created this directory with functions in it. I'm going to change into that directory and clear my screen. And if we go inside this src, you'll see that I have this main.rs, and we're going to use this main.rs to write our functions in. You can see that Rust has automatically created a main function for us, so this is going to act as the entry point into our program. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to actually compile and run this. So I'm going to do cargo run, and we get a very predictable hello world. I like to do this at the start. it's kind of probably unnecessary, but I like to just check that my code will compile and actually run, even with nothing else done. So with that done, I'm just going to now start with making a change. So either above or below. In Rust, it doesn't matter whether you write your function down here or your function up above. And I think it's probably preference as to whether you want to kind of have your main function at the end or your main function at the top. Probably better to have it one way or the other and not hidden somewhere in the middle. But I think it's preference. So I'm going to write a new function. I'm going to start with fn, and I'm going to call this add numbers. Okay, you've probably got a clue as to what we're going to do with this function. The next thing we need to do is we need to have some parameters for this function. So I'm going to have a parameter a, and I need to give this a type. And I'm going to have a parameter b, and I need to give this a type. And now this little arrow here that I've created is for the return type. So these are some of the things that Rust requires. It requires you to specify the type of the data for your parameters and also the return type. After that, everything is going to go inside these brackets. So the next thing I need to do is I'm going to do let sum equal a plus b. No, I'm not going to call it sum. I'm going to call it result. And then I want to return result. So I'm just going to put result there. Okay, so we've got function add numbers. A is type integer 32, B integer 32, and the return is integer 32. Okay, the next one is we've declared a variable with let result equal a plus b, and then we return that result. So if I was to run this now, it would still print hello world. In fact, let's try that now. Okay, so I've been given a warning here. Function add numbers is never used. Okay, so Rust is warning me that I have a function in my code, but that function is not used. So let's fix that now. What we need to do is, because main is the entry point, we need to call add numbers from our function. So let's let sum equal add numbers, and then in here let's do it this way. Let num1 equal 10, let num2 equal 20, let sum equal num1, let sum equal add numbers num1, num2. Okay. What we then want to do is we want to print out the result. So print ln, and then let's do result of and is. And then I'm just going to include the variables here. Sum. Okay, and put a semicolon at the end of that. Okay, so hopefully this should work. The result of number 1 and number 2 is the sum of the result. Let's try and see if that has fixed our warning and if it's going to run properly. So that's worked, and I'm just going to like clear the screen so it's a bit more obvious. So the result of 10 and 20 is 30. Okay, maybe my grammar isn't so good. I could probably make that a bit clearer. But you can see that what's happened is we've provided number 1, which is 10, number 2, which is 20, and we've then created a new variable, sum, which is going to make a call to the add numbers function with number 1 and number 2 as the parameters. The next thing is that these parameters are added here. We then have our function code, which is result a plus b, and it returns the result. So that's all good, but like maybe we can make an improvement here. So the first thing that we want to do is make a much better improvement in the fact that this function could be improved. What we don't need to do is have a result. We don't need to assign it to a variable, and we just need a plus b. Now, if I do this right now, because there's a semicolon at the end of the line, this isn't going to return a result. So I need to remove this semicolon. Okay, so now my function looks more idiomatic, the way Rust would like it. And I just want to cover a couple of things, statements and expressions. So a statement in Rust is a structure, if you like, for putting your code into. So this is this function is a statement, what's between these brackets is a statement, and something that returns a value is an expression. So this is an expression. Effectively, the simple way to kind of like, I think, look at some of this is like, if I included this semicolon at the end, this would, and put let, let some value equal. Okay, that's going to be a expression, and sorry, that's going to be a statement, and then this is going to be an expression. So I would need to return some value. But we don't have to do that. We can simplify this, and we can just do a plus b, exclude the semicolon at the end, and have this expression returned by default. So I'm going to give this a go now and see if it will compile. And we get the same result. But we can see that we've removed quite a lot of lines of code from here. We've simplified it, and it's really obvious as to what this function is doing and what it is returning. So that's kind of statements and expressions. Just want to go over some of the basics. Declaring a function with a fn, giving it a meaningful name. Here, this name is meaningful. Including the types. Rust ensures that we include the types and the type of the return as well. After that, like our main function is here and is the first entry point to the code and contains some of the core logic of our program. And after that, we've got some variables which we've defined in here, and then we call out to that function to get the result returned, and then we're just putting the result there. So that's all I want to cover in this session. I hope you really enjoyed it and that you are getting a lot of value out of these tutorials. I'm getting a lot of value out of giving them, so I'm looking forward to doing more of them. Going through everything step by step. I hope the pace is okay. I hope I'm clear enough in what I'm trying to convey to you. I really want to do more of these. Please like this video, subscribe to other videos. As ever, I'll put links in the description, and I'll put links to previous tutorials so that you can just go back and take a look. But thank you very much for tuning in, and I look forward to giving another future session.